Okay. I always seem to make a face when we go live. So, hi, I'm Laura Jane, and I'm here with my friend Leigh. Leigh, how do you say your last name? I'm not even going to try.
I know we know each other in ways we don't need last name knowledge, right?
Hmm?
Sietsema.
Sietsema. Yeah. Well, I'm so thankful that you're here for this parenting boost conversation series that I've just allowed through in following the inspiration. And yeah, and really, I reach out to someone like you because I've felt inspired by you since I met you probably a few years ago. And
Mhm.
even though I haven't even been around you live much, it's been just a few times, but just in getting to know you and being connected on social media and knowing other people who know you, I just already get such a full feeling of how much you've been someone who's enriching parents' lives. And I can really feel like you're so intentional with your life, with your kids. So thank you for being here as part of this. And
Thank
hope you're ready.
you. I love that you followed your intuition to create a platform where you can connect with parents and other people sharing what they do in their parenting world. So thank you.
Uh, yeah. And I know you used to be in LA near me, I think, but now are you across the country still?
We are. We're in North Carolina,
Okay.
up in the mountains in Asheville, and it's beautiful here.
Oh, I bet.
Really
And you're there
beautiful.
with who of your family and kids are there with you?
I know. So I have 6 kids, as you know,
Ah,
and my 3 oldest are off on their young adult journeys.
okay. Yeah.
And I did get a smattering of them back at times during the COVID experience. So that was kind of fun. I didn't think I'd have all 6 under one roof again. So I really was in deep gratitude to have that experience. So right now I have with me my youngest 3 who are an 18-year-old son and an 11-year-old son, son and a 9-year-old daughter.
Ah,
So 3 kids, Parker, Chandler, and Claire.
wow. And I was actually just talking with some friends about how I'm so amazed at moms who have many more kids than I did. I just had 2. And I could see how, like, gosh, I would be such a different version of me if I had more. And I just have been in such reverence of moms who have 4 kids, 3 kids, much less 6 kids. But you're someone and you've been doing that and seemingly enjoying that. And then like homeschooling a lot through that too, right?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
homeschooled.
So that it's like, okay, so then we want to know how do you like, how do you enjoy it? How do you show up so like relaxed about it? So yeah, how do you like to tell your version of how you see it's gone to get you here and however long you want to go with that?
Yeah, I think enjoying is really a key word. I really strive to enjoy my family and enjoy each of their unique gifts. And everyone in our life shows up uniquely. And so when it's our children, for me, it's easier to embrace because I adore them. I love them. But I think seeing the good in them and appreciating the gifts they bring versus focusing on what isn't working has served me really well. So let me tell you my story.
Yes, please.
I am an only child to a young single mama, and she did the best she could, but I definitely grew up under less than ideal circumstances. I'm sure she would agree. And she was 16 when she had me, so she
Oh,
herself was still growing up.
oh,
And so the model of parenting I was raised with was the disciplinarian, authoritarian, um, sit down, shut up, don't speak unless you're spoken to, say yes, ma'am, say no, ma'am. A very, what appears to be a respectful communication. People often say they want a child to say yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am, as a sign of respect. And I don't actually see it that way because, from my perspective as a child, I would say yes, ma'am, with as much sarcasm and anger as I could because I was sarcastic, angry, unheard, and unseen. And it was a difficult growing up. So when I met my Prince Charming, so here's another awesome thing to know is I married very young. I married at 19,
mm-hmm,
and that marriage did not last. So by 21, I was divorced.
mm-hmm.
And then I met my husband, and now we've been married 30 something years. I'll try not to do the math because it might scare me. That's a lot of years.
Uh,
Um, and he really gave me the gift of time and space to find a therapist and to address some of the issues I was having. So when I had my first child, I was not the person I am today. I was not the mother I am today. And it terrified me that the very way I had been treated so naturally came up with how I was treating her. And I didn't want it. And I told my husband, if I can't figure this out, I will leave our marriage and I'll leave the kids with you, because I won't do to my kids what was done to me. And so thankfully I found a therapist. And along my journey, I also discovered some books. So I discovered Marshall Rosenberg's Nonviolent Communication. And as wonderful as that is, it didn't serve me very well because I had a lot of unresolved anger. And for whatever reason, that work triggered my anger very quickly. So that's interesting, right? So then I discovered through La Leche League this really great book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen.
Yep, one of my favorites over the years.
This is an amazing book. And in fact, whenever I see it used, I buy it and I give it away because it's such a great book.
It truly is, right?
And really inspired me to think that, oh, wow, I don't have to have a pre-formulated answer. I can sit and listen to my children. So that was the first introduction for me about this concept of I get to be in relationship with my child. So I loved that. But I also had a nursling. She wasn't very controversial at the time. She just nursed, right? She was adorable. She wasn't pushing any of my buttons. So I learned some of these tools in this book and I loved it. But the minute she started having an opinion, which kids do, as they should, right? All of my buttons were pushed. And that's when I saw how I was parented come out with my daughter. And it terrified me. I did not want that for her. So again, I'm a reader. Through La Leche League conferences, I just found out about a lot of authors. And this book saved my life. So here it is. I credit Mila and John Kabat-Zinn.
I love that book. I have that one too.
I love this book.
Amazing.
So I may cry telling this part of the story. And I often reread this chapter just to remind myself of my goal. But at the beginning of the book, maybe the introduction, he talks about his college-age son coming home and they expected him for dinner and he was late and they went with it. I'm like, what? You can do that? And you're not angry. You're not slamming things. You're not calling them and hanging up on them. You're just like, all right, son, we'll see you when we see you. You're with your friends. And I'm probably not doing justice to the chapter, but they just gave such reverence to their young adult son coming home from college to see them, and respect that he had other people he wanted to see too. Yes. And they weren't first, they weren't last, they were just among the people their son held in such high regard. He wanted to come home and see them. I got chills. So I literally cried when I read that, and I thought, that's possible? That's what I want. I want a relationship with my kids so that when they're adults and they're doing their adult life, they're going to call me and say, I just landed this job. I just adopted a kitten. Here's the pictures. And this was before I could have imagined the internet or FaceTime or anything. But I just so wanted to have an adult relationship, mature, healthy adult relationship with my children. And that was my goal. So from that point forward, it was really, what can I do to further that goal? And I made the decision that every conversation was building our relationship or tearing it down. And how could I show up fully to be there to hold space for our relationships? And the other thing I knew is that I'm not going to be perfect. And I just knew in my heart, if I could push us along much farther than my mom was able to push us along in terms of a good, healthy connection, they would have a better chance with their kids to push the needle that much farther along. That we could quickly skip some generations to have a whole human beings. So then I discovered Eileen Valleson, again through a La Leche League conference. And by this time I was a La Leche League leader. I was helping lead meetings and helping other moms during toddler years how to, again, back to that beautiful book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen, Listen So Kids Will Talk. And if you don't have trauma and challenges to overcome, I think those resources are really what you need to learn how to develop a conscious relationship with your child, an intentional relationship. I think for me, I just had to undo some spider webs from my history to really get on a clear path of what that looked like.
Yeah.
So Eileen Valleson spoke at a La Leche League conference, and this is her book, How to Bring Out, I don't know which way to go. Here we go. Bring Out the Best in Your Child and Yourself. And I love this book. I love her, and I love this book. And I went on to become a student of Eileen and her work. And I took her basic class 3 times. And then I took her advanced class 2 times. And I was going to sign up again. And she said, no more. Go forth and teach because you know what you're doing. And at the time we had 4 kids. And she said, you don't need my class again. You've got this. And I was terrified. Like, no, I've always been a student. I should keep being a student of this work. And I think that's true. I think our children are forever giving us opportunities to be students, to go back and readdress. A new button got pushed. Where's that coming from? And how do we resolve it? Anyway, so I'd love to share with you a couple of my favorite tools that Eileen talks about and that I find the most beneficial in terms of helping me reach my goal, which is to have a healthy adult relationship with my kids.
Oh, I love that. That sounds perfect. And I thank you for that, helping us stay focused on our long range goals for our kids and our relationship with our kids, right? Yeah. So yes, please go on.
Well, I think it's such a cultural idea that we hold that when our children are 18, they're grown, ready to be on their own, and we're no longer responsible. Our parenting is done. And I think when we hold that thought, we're not building a relationship, we're rushing someone out the door. And I don't think that's true in every family dynamic, but it certainly felt that way for me. So I don't want to accuse others if that's working for them.
Yeah.
But I really wanted a different path, and I really wanted to set some intention behind what I did and to create a long-term path. So one of the things I love about Eileen's work that I love teaching is a visualization experience where you literally create your future family in a visualization. And when the visualization walks you through what is everyone doing? What are they saying? How are they interacting with one another? What does the space look like? Where are you in this? And how are you reacting and interacting with your children? And when I finished that exercise for the first time, I just sat there sobbing, thinking, can that be possible? And it was a very simple idea. I had a picture of a dining room table with us all sitting around the table, enjoying a meal and just talking. How was your day? And, oh, this happened to you. So I didn't have big kids. I had little kids at the time. So I didn't know what it would look like. But my vision was very simple. I pictured a table and us all coming together to this table as young adults and grown parents. I would be officially a grown parent if they were grown. And connecting, sharing, listening to each other, offering mutual respect for each other, disagreeing in a healthy way, because I don't think agreeing is like mashed potatoes. It's very flat. So where is the life in disagreeing? How do you disagree? How do you do that and respect one another? So that was my visualization. And after she then calls you to come out of the visualization and journal and draw pictures. And I literally looked at that every day between this book, Everyday Blessings, right, and that chapter, and my visualization. I thought, this is possible. I could have a son wanting to come home from college, excited to see me. I can hold space and not be angry if he's 6 hours late. I just held these little strings of possibility together.
I love that. And so that it could be really just a practice for us as parents, that we could dream, kind of visualize, imagine, and stay focused on even what we'd like to be having in our experience with our families, right? And I love that as an exercise that we can do with ourselves, and just stay in, and then ways that we can remind ourselves of that's what we want, that's what we're intending, and that's so powerful. Oh, that's beautiful.
Absolutely. And then for me, this idea that marries into that is, if every conversation is a relationship and I believe in mutual respect, I'm sorry, every conversation either builds our relationship or tears it down,
Yes.
then if I'm based on mutual respect, then you have a right to say to me,
Yeah.
I don't like what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I love it. It's really hard to hear that from your child, but it's such an opportunity to grow. I just had that happen where I was frustrated about something, again, very COVID related in terms of dynamics.
Mm.
And my son said to me, that wasn't okay, the way you said that. And I talked about why, and he said why, and we talked. And then I slept poorly last night, just kind of rethinking what steps got me there.
Yeah.
And I went to him this morning and apologized. And he said, thank you. It's really important that we stay clear on this. And it's okay if I disagree. And I said, absolutely. This is my new task as a mom, is how do I embrace my now adult children, maybe doing things differently than I believe, or stepping into a path that maybe I'm not sure that's the right path for them, but it's their life, and, honoring that.
Right.
So for me, it's really about just staying really clear that my goal is to be in relationship with my kids, not that they stay home and be dependent on me forever, but that we remain in relationship and can talk.
Yes. Oh, and I love that you bring that important piece up, that every conversation is a chance to either build up the relationship or tear it
Yeah.
down. Is that how you say
Yeah.
it?
Right.
Yeah. And that, because the words that we have with our kids, and especially as they get older, and we all have heard and know the stories of the teen years, and right, how we can kind of categorize the teens to be the ones doing all the attitude, right? And so often it's, yeah, that they're not feeling respected, for instance. So I
Right.
just love that that reminds us every conversation is important, and having a role in like what the energy is going to be like with our kids. So wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just did a not just, but this past school year before, like I'm lovingly calling it before the world came to an end.
uh
Um,
yes.
trying to find some humor in this
Uh-huh.
current experience.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I taught a class at my son's school to middle school and high school parents. And that question was presented to me. What do you do when you're in conflict with your child and it's not going anywhere? You say, do your homework, get good grades. I'm taking your phone, I'm taking the car. And that's our very natural cultural paradigm. I'm the parent, you're the child. I say what to do, you jump that high. This is our culture. And I said to them, this isn't building relationships. And as you can see, a teenager at some point says, I don't need to follow your every rule. I don't need to jump as high or as often as you tell me. And then we're going to see this very defiant, oppositional human being because they're angry.
Yeah.
They've been told what to do a long time. And so they asked me what to do. And I said, well, I'd think, what is their favorite food? If it's one of my kids, it's donuts. And first, LJ, you have to know I'm all about the food. So,
Yeah. Oh, like a love language, right?
yeah, and also that table, that idea of we come to the table together.
Mm.
So I said I would go and get their favorite food, or I'd say to them, let's go. It's a donut morning. I cleared the decks for the morning. Let's go get donuts.
Mm-hmm.
And they might be like, I don't want to have a donut with you. So I could see why. I haven't listened. I haven't paid attention, and I'm changing it. Just to show up really present
Wow. Ooh.
and say, I want to be in your life, and I'm willing to try to figure it out. You
Wow.
can be angry at me. I get it. And I've been angry at you at times. So let's come together and figure out a way. And the lady said to me, so sweet. She said, it can't be that easy. I said, oh, nothing in life is that easy, but it's so worth it.
Right.
It's so worth it. And can you imagine, or let's say your child's in the room and they don't want to go with you, and an omelet and potatoes are their favorite meal. Or I have a child who loves salads, a beautiful salad. What do they love? Maybe it's a book. Maybe it's concert tickets. Maybe it's $20 bill to get a new gaming, whatever, with a love note that says, I want to do better.
Yeah. Right. And
I
you're
see
teaching,
you.
right, about
Right.
relationships and what you do in relationships when you want to make amends, even, or show them
Yes.
that you hear them, it's so beautiful to be willing to do that with our kids and not feel like we're going to like spoil them, right? I don't even know where that whole term came about, but
right? Yeah.
yeah, I love this.
I love you said making amends, and that's a big part of our family philosophy is we do believe in versus apologizing,
Ah,
making amends.
ah,
And I think it's such a great kind of introduction to a child who you're not in connection with that you want to start. That's what I said to this mom. I said, what about a do-over? Just say to your child, I need a do-over of the last 5 years. I haven't done it very well.
uh,
And I'm showing up now. I really want to know you. I want to take care of you. I want to hear you. I want to adore you again. I want you to come to the dinner table excited to hear about my day. I want to be excited about your day. Just stepping out in faith that our children are worth it. And that's leads me to the next thing I love about
yes.
QP, which is the part that really worked for me was the piece that didn't work for me about the nonviolent communication is Eileen has an exercise in her program is called Quality Parenting. I teach quality parenting.
Mm.
She has a really incredible way for us to look at ourselves and that part of ourselves that in her language we call it a lower self quality
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and how we show up. So back in the day my lower self quality had smoke coming out of her ears and my hair was standing on end. Like that's what I pictured I looked like to my child when I would lose it before
Ah,
I learned all these skills. So we do an exercise where we draw our lower self, we
ah,
name our lower self, and then we honor our lower self by saying, what is she thinking? What is
ah,
she feeling? What is she saying?
mm,
What is she needing? And we honor that lower self character, which some people would call our inner child,
ah,
a part of us that's stuck in that paradigm, and we're coming out angry. So Eileen really talks about how do we honor and connect with that part of ourself that needs attention and time,
ah.
grace, love, forgiving, healing. And through this beautiful exercise, we then get to notice when we're triggered, I'm pushing on pretend buttons, but when we're triggered by something our child says, like I hear a lot from moms with toddlers, I can't stand it. He says no to me all the time. No is my favorite word. I love toddlers and I love teenagers. So I have a different experience around them. But wouldn't it be great if instead of thinking my kid's rotten for saying no to me all the time, we looked inward and said, what am I feeling when he says that? What am I feeling when he throws the spaghetti on the floor or tries to kick me when I'm undoing his car seat? Or I'm trying to think back to the toddler years. It's been a long time.
You got some good ones though there. I can remember those moments.
Right. And so some moms never get triggered by that. But whatever it is that triggers us, that makes us angry, makes our insides go from 0 to 100, where
Mm-hmm.
we're really ready to shake them by the shoulders or parents still spank or, berating them verbally or embarrassing them publicly. Really, in that moment, there's a little pause button somewhere inside of us that if we could pause our reaction, we could really look to see it's not our child, but us that has something to heal. Because otherwise, if it was about the spaghetti, everyone would get upset about it.
Ah,
But maybe I don't get upset about the spaghetti, but I get upset when I'm kicked. And maybe you don't get upset about being kicked, but spaghetti on your white couch bothers you. I'm just making it up.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm just saying it's different for each one of us. So
There's a reason
really,
it triggers you.
right, it's about us.
You.
So I love her work because it's really about how do we visualize what we want and then how do we honor and address the roadblocks getting us there.
Yes, yes.
And those are within us.
Yeah. And I love that exercise that you just shared. It sounds like it is a way to honor those aspects of ourselves, right? And like the drawing or writing about our lower self and the way
Yes.
that would show up and listening to it, you're asking those questions with it. So that sounds like a really practical, tangible way to do what you're saying. This like healing our own wounds and some of the inner work. I love that. That's a practical way to do that. That exercise right there.
Yeah, and it may lead us to some simple answers. One of my first lower self characters, I literally drew. My hair was on end, smoke is coming out of my ears, nothing nice was coming out of my mouth. And what did I need? I needed a nap. I was exhausted. I
Yeah.
had two young children, just over
Oh,
2 years apart, tandem nursing. My husband worked long, long hours in the IT world, and I was exhausted. So I really could use a nap. I could use someone else making dinner, maybe paper plates. So there's some practical, quick things that, with a few tweakings, once I realized just a few tweakings. So my husband was very willing and would often say when he got home from work, "How can I help?" But I didn't really know how he could help. But once I identified that I needed space, I needed a shower, I needed to go to the bathroom alone, like I needed some things that with two little bitty babies under two, or just under 2.5 together, it's hard to accomplish. So what we came up with was a strategy where he came in the door, and I would be ready to leave. And he'd come in the door and I'd say, "I love you." Mutual kissing, and out I would go. And I would stay out a couple of hours, sometimes only half an hour. Sometimes I walked around the street to Gelson's and picked up half a sandwich and ate it. Sometimes I got in the car and drove around the block and listened to music. I just spent time with me and took some space. Sometimes I went to the car and took a nap.
it's also functional. I love it. It's like to see that your expression from that seemingly lower aspect of yourself was from these like unmet needs,
Yeah.
right? And then realizing what the needs were, and then actually speaking up for your needs with your
Yes.
partner and saying, "Wow, I'm realizing I'm needing this," with yourself. So it's, wow, what a great process. I love it. It makes
Yes.
sense. And it helps you even like make amends with yourself, right? And really start to shift some of those patterns when you handle it like that.
Absolutely. And for me, it became just a habit. So every time something triggered me, I would just stop, probably when a child was asleep, but I would stop when I had the space to say, "What was that?" And draw out the lower character, write what they needed. What were they thinking? What are they feeling? What do they need? What do they want? What are they saying? Like, just to get a full picture, and then work towards getting those needs met. Because the closer I got to meeting those needs, the more that lower self became invisible.
It's so
And
cool.
then
Sense.
another lower self will pop up. I mean, I just had one pop up yesterday, and
Hmm.
I haven't had them pop up in a long time. So
Hmm.
just probably like a yoga practice, you do get to a level of self-awareness, and then COVID pops up.
Right. And you still, we're going to always have more and more maybe to unearth and
Yes,
reveal, and to just keep letting those triggers be
right.
the guide.
Exactly. Let them be the guide and honor them and honor your experience. So it doesn't have to be that what I used to say to myself is, "Leigh, you're the worst person in the world. How are you going to mother?" Like, my self-talk was
Right.
so bad before I began this process.
Right. That's
And
what I
yet,
do here, is this is such a different, more loving way to handle ourselves, which means we're actually going to be able to be more loving with others because of it. Right. Yeah.
yes. And a
Uh,
good modeling for our kids, that
right.
they get to fall apart and they get to share what they need and they get to say out loud, "I don't want to play with that friend anymore. I
Yeah.
don't want, to be hugged by grandma. I don't want to eat at grandma," whatever it is. The minute we get to acknowledge and say what we need and honor it is the moment we give our kids permission to honor that as well.
Right. And I think that kind of thing is so important, especially in that so many of us are concerned about our kids' mental health, for instance, and things like anxiety and depression and feeling
Yeah.
suicidal. So this is like at the heart of that whole discussion, right? Is like helping our kids be in touch with what their needs are and be able to express that to us, and helping them develop a coping style, right, with themselves that can be something they carry into adulthood that is more functional and really works with relationships. So it's amazing stuff that's being taught through this
Yeah.
kind of work with ourselves.
Yeah. I really do love what Eileen created. It's been a totally life changing for me. And I think it's definitely been a trajectory my kids can move into and improve upon, in their lives with their own children down the line.
Yes, knowing it's
So
a solution.
I love that. Yeah. And
How do
for me,
you
it
oh,
became
go
kind
ahead.
of I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
It became a philosophy. So sometimes in parent courses, they develop rules. These are the rules of our home. No hitting, no biting, very practical ideas. What I developed through Eileen's work is the idea of a philosophy, a family philosophy based on mutual respect, based on compassion, based on time. If your child comes to you or there's a need in the house, anybody can call a family meeting, anybody. My littlest Claire did it when she was 3. She was highly insulted. Someone ate all the strawberries, so she called a family meeting, and we had to discuss some more thoughtful ways to not disregard her strawberry love at the time.
Yes.
But it was such a great modeling for her to see she had a voice in our
Yeah.
family.
To
And
teach leadership, right? Or to allow leadership. And,
yes, and when a toddler and a teenager have a voice, the acting out disappears.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
When they feel heard, they don't feel like they have to scream or
Exactly.
rebel or have attitude. And when they feel respected.
Right, absolutely. Right? And then for me, that goes in with our family philosophy. We all contribute to what our family philosophy looks like. I started in the early days, but over the years, it's been embellished. And we now call upon our family philosophy. Like, is that a quality we hold in our family? Is that a place we want to grow? Or is that something we want to work on? Is that a strength, or is that taking away from your character? So we don't look at it as somebody did something wrong or they broke a rule, or even that they lied. A lot of families will come to me and say, my child is lying. I don't really like that word lying. If your child is telling things that aren't true in your perspective, they might be true in their perspective.
Yeah.
And what does that look like? Why are they saying what they're saying? So anyway, I personally love the idea of family philosophy, which is kind of like an umbrella, which covers a lot of territory, versus family rules, which if you're a very clever toddler and teenager, you can figure out what's not in the rules, even though it's not the letter of the law, right? And you can get away with it. Well, you didn't tell me not to steal the car. You didn't tell me not to write on the wall with Sharpie. But that wouldn't happen, I think, in a home with mutual respect and a philosophy about how you are together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention, I wanted to ask about the philosophy, but I've noticed too that when children aren't in fear of things like punishment, they're less likely to lie too.
Absolutely.
Right? That's not being used.
So true.
So is a family philosophy something that like you would choose and then you're kind of inviting everybody to follow, or is it something that you would co-create as a family? How would that look in the way it's gone for you all?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Well, I began this work when Megan, our oldest, who's now 27, was very little. She was 3, maybe 3.5 when I discovered it. So at that time, I just used what I had. But it has evolved. So now there's discussion, and within our family philosophy, gender equality, the discussion of honoring people where they're at in their expression of their gender. Not just within our family, but it's a philosophy we hold. So it's wherever we go.
Yes.
Holding space for respect in race. How do we step in and help someone? Like, this is part of our family philosophy. Even something very simple is on our way last year to school. We tried out school when we got here, LJ, with mixed results, but one liked it, the other didn't. There was a dog that had been hit on the side of the road, and we didn't know if he was alive or not. And we were on our way running to school, and if we stopped, we'd be late. And the boys said, and I knew we had to stop.
Yeah.
So we had to make a U-turn because there's small country roads here, and we stopped, and my oldest son hopped out and went to look, and he sat there and he's shaking his head like, don't stop the car. I don't want Chandler to see this. Again, you get to know your children when you're really observant and connected. And Parker hops back in the car and he says, no, the dog is gone already, Mom. And I said, was there a collar? He goes, I checked all over. There's nothing. I don't know how to identify, because we were going to call, right, the owner. And it was a great conversation, because then my youngest son realized we were going to be late for school, and then he was very anxious about that. And so we talked about our family philosophy and how in our family, tending to a living creature that couldn't tend to themselves was more important in that moment. And he could hold his head up high walking in late saying, this is what we did. This is important to our family. And we did what's important
Mhm.
to us.
I love.
And yeah. And so had I passed the dog, right, maybe they'd have called a family meeting to say, hey, this is not okay with us. Like, this isn't holding true to our family philosophy.
Mm.
So for me, a philosophy kind of encompasses an idea that parents want to call rules out. And I like the idea of a philosophy because it really embraces the idea of what we're about. So if we're about checking on a little dog, then we're also about not cheating on an exam, right? We're about doing the right thing. We're about caring. We're about tending to things. We're about being honest. Teacher, I don't get any of this. I'm way confused and I'm not going to be able to figure out this exam.
Mm.
I'm okay with that. That's honest and real. Um, and I've got my child's back if the teacher gives them a hard time. That won't work for me.
Mm.
So for me, a philosophy works really well because it's a much wider umbrella than a list of rules, a
Yeah.
much and more encompassing idea.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
and how it's such this just like teachable moment happening throughout, right, with all these different situations in your lives happening as a family, that you could keep coming together and talking about how it does and doesn't work with your family philosophy. And it's just teaching so much about integrity, right, and intention to our kids to practice something like that. So I love that.
Yes. And to be willing to learn as a parent, to be
Yes.
willing to hear my kids
Right.
say,
Yeah. And
Mom,
yeah.
that's not how that goes. And particularly with gender roles right now, this is something I'm learning. And
Hmm.
the high school that my son is in, that's a very important issue, as it should be.
Hmm.
So he reminds me, and my other kids remind me. And so I'm much better at it. I'm much more conscious and aware of my language.
Yeah.
And that's under our philosophy of mutual respect. So why wouldn't I want to do that?
Yeah. Right.
Right?
And
Right.
you value their opinion just as much as your own, and you show them that in how you hear them, and even adjust your behavior as needed according to what comes up with your discussions. It sounds like. So yeah, I love
Yeah.
that, and I believe in that. Wow. Well, gosh, we so easily have filled our time as we were thinking we would, but is there anything more that you
Thank
wanted
you.
to just say or share at this time, or any more of those tools that you wanted to make sure you got to say? I love those two that you gave us, are amazing and could change any parent's life.
Thank you. The resources are in Eileen's book, Bring Out the Best in Your Child and Yourself, Eileen Valleson. And my newest idea actually is to do an online virtual book club around this book.
Ah, yes.
And I thought that would be really fun. So if anybody is interested in kind of stepping into this without a full-blown class,
Uh-huh.
I thought that might be really, really fun and easy. I would just make it showing up and let's explore what this looks like together.
I'm sure that was
Um,
enriching, and I just, yeah, I can tell that book would be so powerful, and then you facilitating it and allowing it to be a group experience like that. That sounds great.
yeah, my copy is quite dog-eared. I've used it
Uh,
many, many
uh,
years. Yes.
yeah.
I also want to thank you. I'm in deep gratitude to you and the work that you do, the way you show up with your very generous and giving heart on a daily basis with your lives and your posts. You're so uplifting and so honoring of people that come into your space, and it's such a gift.
Mm.
You are a gift that you give to us each day, and I'm so grateful to know you. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, Leigh. Well, this has felt so beautiful. I'm so happy to have done this. And yeah, and so for people who want to stay in touch, things like through your Facebook
Yep.
and any other places that you like to be reached, or is that kind of the best way right now?
That's the best way right now. My
Yeah.
website's under construction.
Yep.
I
Yep.
just finished another parenting class. I have a certification in neurodivergent parenting, and that was amazing. I loved learning about brain science and how to help different kids that show up differently in our lives. What that looks like, backed by my ideas of mutual respect and philosophical ideas versus sets of hard and fast rules.
Mm,
So I love it. So yes, I'm a bit under construction right now in
yeah. Yeah.
renovation.
As many
So
are.
right. And
Reconstruct.
yep, things are changing. So my Facebook page. Yep.
Yeah. And you said that in the next few months that you are plotting to do get it back to even more and refreshed versions of like one-on-one kind of coaching if people wanted, and some group online things that you're going to be offering, so people can stay tuned for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Mm.
I'm used to doing my work in living rooms, and now this isn't a comfortable time for that. So, how do we create an intimate space online? And that's really where I'm playing. I'm really wanting to figure that out for parents to feel safe coming together to share their most intimate challenges with their children. You need to feel safe to do that. So, yeah,
Mm.
I'm under construction there too. So, in the next few months, I hope to have some things underway. And this has been wonderful. I love being exposed to this new technology you're using today and this new tool.
I
It's
know it's
great.
great. Yeah. So,
It's really
um,
great.
well, thank you so much. I'm so excited that you're available and ready to help parents at this time because, yeah, so many could use it. And I think you're just a shining example of what you're doing is obviously working for you. So, and it seems like you're enjoying the ride of parenting, which is like our greatest hope, right?
Yes.
Enjoy this precious time with our kids. So,
And it can be enjoyed. I think that's my biggest spark of hope. It can really be something you enjoy. Yeah,
right. And I really feel like that's what all of us parents want deep down. We
absolutely.
forget that that's a priority. So, uh, well, thank you so much, Leigh. And
Thank you, LJ.
thank you all for being here with us. And please share with anyone you feel like that this could help. Yeah, I know that this will help whoever watches it. So thanks so much, Leigh.
Bye. Thank
All
you.
right. Goodbye, y'all.